Welcome back to the channel, guys. Sid here from 3 Mississippi. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today we are hanging out with the birds a little bit. We're going to talk about some of their fencing that we've got reset up here and how and why we like to move and pasture our poultry, and maybe a few fun poultry facts as well. Guys, as you can see right now, I've got a bunch of my ducks that followed me over here. I did give them some of their grub Terra, which is black soldier fly larva. I love this product. It's made in the USA and it reduces a lot of food waste. I love reducing, reusing, and repurposing stuff. And being able to feed my animals with it is perfect. It's a really good little treat for them. The reason I'm kind of giving them some out here right now is because I'm trying to get them to realize that they have all this space. Sometimes when we move them to a new area of pasture or an area that we want cleared out, they don't realize that their boundaries have changed. And so I try to walk them around the perimeter. I try to give them some treats and kind of dust the area so that they'll kind of dig around and scratch around and realize that, oh, we can be here. This is part of our new spot. So as you can see behind me, we have an electrified poultry netting from Premier One Fencing. And we moved this last night, guys.
So these branches in here under the tree, are these of any concern?
Yeah, maybe cut that lower one off.
This one right here?
Uh-huh.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
We want to leave them as much shade, right? As
right.
We can. We just don't want them to be able to climb up a tree and then hop over the fence.
Right.
So you think this branch is probably a problem?
Yes.
They'll climb that?
Yeah.
I was on fire, our house, our dreams. We were dancing on a wire, reckless it seemed. We found holes in these walls, we liked what we saw. Seems so strong until it falls, the final straw. Oh, I never felt like this before. When I was struck, you showed an open door. Living in a dark, clouded haze, we danced, we fought. We were bound to make mistakes, real love, we thought. But it was always on fire, our house, our dreams. We were dancing on a wire, reckless it seemed.
When it hadn't rained in Mississippi in about 3 weeks, step in post, don't step in.
is just off to my left. That's home base. That's where they sleep at night. That's where we lock them up to keep them safe from predators in the evenings, and where they get released from in the morning. Fowl and poultry can be a little bit rough on land when they're concentrated in one spot for too long. You'll hear a lot of people talk about using chicken tractors, especially for their meat birds, to be able to pasture them safely and pull them along on the pasture so that they can have access to fresh grass that they're eating as they move along, as well as depositing that nitrogen rich manure all over the pasture as you move them, since that way you're not over that 8 to 12 week to 16-week span, however long you like to keep your meat birds for. You're not concentrating it all in one spot and kind of burning your ground. Right now I have some of my teenage birds that are sort of out of the brooder, but not quite big enough to be out here yet with these guys, because they would be able to just walk through that netting with no problem size wise, and they're just sort of hawk bait at this point. So I do have them penned up in the chicken tractor within this netting. I'm kind of using it as a brooder right now. I love having options like that as well. If there's a bird that is sick or injured, I have a place to kind of stow them. But I love repurposing the chicken tractor in the off season for different things like that, because there's always an animal that needs special attention, or a group that maybe isn't, that you hatched out later in the season, that coming into fall, they're not quite ready to go fully with the flock, but this gives them a good chance to be with the flock but separate, so that they can get used to each other, but they're still protected from a lot of the elements and predators that might be able to pick them off easily, as well as them just wandering out from the fencing. Now, this netting fencing that you see behind me is great at keeping the birds within their boundaries, and it's easily movable. It's got stakes that drive into the ground and poles that you can attach to help. In fact, it probably needs one right here now that I'm looking at it, to help add some extra strength to keep it upright in areas where it curves around specifically. Now, if the bird just touches this with their feathers, it is not going to zap them. It's only going to zap them where there's contact. So let's say they put their head through and then pull back, kind of lifting those feathers, and it makes contact with their skin on one of these wires. That will give them a buzz and cause them to back up. Same thing with their feet. If they grab it with their feet, it's going to zap them and they'll back out. For the most part, because they are given such a large area here to roam, we really haven't had any issues with them really trying to escape. So this has been really effective too, because when I have the livestock guardian pup out here and I'm working with them with the birds, this keeps them within their boundaries. I don't have to worry about them getting out, because this zaps them the same as it would zap the birds. Once it makes contact with their skin or their paws or their nose, mouth, whatever, it will zap them, and then they know, oops, that fence is spicy. That is a no-go. Now, as you guys may notice, I have a mixed flock of birds. I've got everything from geese, ducks, and many different kinds of chicken breeds. Now, the reason that I like to keep a variety of animals in my flock is multiple fold. Some of the ducks I use for meat and eggs, as well as they're very good breeders. I keep Muscovies. They are seasonal layers and seasonal breeders, but they're really good about raising their own young. So it's real hands-off for me, and then I get, to reap the rewards of having those babies that I can then turn around and sell, or I can harvest the meat from. So as a homesteader, or somebody that might consider themselves someone who likes to be prepared and be a little bit more sustainable, the Muscovy duck is amazing. They don't need much water. They just need to be able to clear out their sinuses. So a small wash basin, you don't have to have a big giant pond for them, allows them to rinse those sinuses out. Same with the geese, allows them to rinse those sinuses out and get them flushed out of their bills. And then they're really good at producing for us to continue that meat going throughout the year. And they're known to have clutches of, around 18 or so. And I can usually, per hen, I can usually get about 2 to 3 clutches per hen. So you guys do the math on that. You could end up with a lot of meat at the end of the season, depending on your numbers to begin with for your breeders. Now, the ducks and geese are amazing at eating bugs, guys. They will catch, the Muscovy specifically, they'll eat the flies. They will catch the little moths and gnats and June bugs and all of that stuff. They go crazy for them. They love their sky raisins, and they will really help keep down some of those flying pests on your farm. And that, of course, as a farmer or somebody that homesteads, that is always something that we're looking to do as naturally as we can, is to eliminate those pests. Because as we all know, when we have, a coop and animal feed and things of that nature, you're going to be drawing in things like bugs. And your chickens will eat a certain amount of the bugs that maybe are in the grass, but they're not as big at catching flies or eating other bugs on a regular basis. They do love a good juicy grasshopper if they can grab it, things like that. And I do find that having the geese and the ducks specifically with my chickens really helps kind of teach them as they grow up, that, oh yeah, I can eat these bugs. More so I found than when you just have the chickens by themselves. Now, obviously, we have the chickens, these particular varieties of breeds for different things. My black chickens are some of my larger ones here. I have two different varieties of black chickens, and they are really good at help deterring overhead predators like hawks. Some people say, oh, that's not true, it doesn't help. It does, it's not 100% cure, right? But it does deter them, because at first glance, a hawk thinks that there's crows on the ground, and the crows and hawks don't get along. So in their little hawk mind, they think, oh, crows are down there, I don't want to mess with them, I'm going to move along to the next thing. It doesn't mean that they still won't swoop down if they see the opportunity, that maybe the blackbirds are in a different area than the rest of your flock. I have noticed that they do kind of stick together, some of my varieties, even though they were all raised together, which is kind of interesting. A little social experiment, poultry version there, if you will. But they do kind of stick together. So I would say that if your flock is mixed, and you're saying, oh, it doesn't work to have just a few black birds in your flock to help deter those overhead predators, I would say, are all your birds together, maybe going up in the coop at the same time? Are they maybe all hanging out on a very different area than the rest of your flock, and that other part of the flock is getting picked off? I don't know. I would just say pay attention to that. But I have, for years now, have kept black birds in my flock, and I have noticed a big difference when it comes to the worry of overhead predators. They really leave them alone. Now the geese, guys, I keep Sebastopol geese. They're a kind of more rare breed, and for the purposes of breeding them to sell the babies, because they can get a little bit pricey. They also make fantastic pets. They're total loves. I can pick them up. I can love on them. They're super, super sweet. They lay very, very small clutches every year, which is why, and once a year, that's it. That's all you get. And that's why they're so sought after, desirable, and pricey. Unfortunately, right now, I only have 3 girls, and the male, the gander that I have, is actually a tufted Roman. That was an accident this year. The hatchery sent me the wrong birds. I had a set of breeding Sebastopol geese that I brought with me from California, but sadly, there was an attack that happened before we had all of these safeguards in place when we first moved here, and unfortunately, all but one of my birds made it. So I still have Millie, one of my hens, my original hens, but I don't have my boys. So, but I do love keeping geese. I know a lot of people are like, oh, geese are so mean, they're awful, they're awful. Yes, there are some breeds of geese that are known for being a little bit more malicious. But if you handle them when they're young, this is true of most breeds of geese. You handle them when they're young, and get a good start with that. They will really imprint with you, similar to the way ducks will. And I would say chickens too. They will kind of know that you're like, okay, you're cool, and they will not be hesitant to be all around you, let you pet them, let you pick them up, all of those things. I do like keeping the geese. They also are great at mowing down the weeds. They are less picky about what grasses they will eat, and they will mow down a lot of this underbrush between the Muscovy and the geese. They're going to be the ones that are mowing a lot of this down, while the chickens are going to be doing more scratching and turning of the soil. So they're amazing to kind of turn loose in an area. Let's say you're ripping out an old garden and you want to kind of churn it up, and it's not that big of an area and you have enough birds to do it. Throw them out there for, a day or two or a few hours, depending on the size and the amount of birds, and, you know, making sure there's safeguards in place that they're protected or that you're out there with them. And they will scratch at that ground and turn up that soil and rip stuff up and get it going really good. And they'll be hunting for some of those bugs. So while they might be depleting your garden of some of the bugs that you want in there, they will be helping to kind of turn that. And your geese and your ducks, they're going to be mowing down those weeds and keeping it from getting to the point where it grows like crazy and needs bush hogs. Now let's address the other elephant in the room. A lot of people are hesitant to have mixed flocks like I do of geese, ducks, and chickens. Some people will tell you that is an absolute no-no, never do it, it's bad juju. And some people might go, well, why is that? Let me explain it to you. 3% of bird species have a male appendage. It's a very small amount. The rest, they breed through cloacal contact, okay? Now, that's not to say that male chickens, in this example, don't have testes that are up inside of them. If you process a bird, if you've ever processed a bird, and you see those little white kidney beans in there, that was a rooster. Those still secrete a semen, and from cloacal to cloacal contact, they are basically giving her a shot of love, and that is what is fertilizing those eggs to make more chickens. Now, ducks are different. Ducks have a male appendage. It is a corkscrew barbed-like appendage, and the female hens have the opposite in their area. So it's kind of interesting how they fit together in a way. And fun fact, with some breeds here, they actually have a separate section, like with these Muscovies, where they can kind of tamper it off, if you will. So let's say there's a drake that is giving them affection that is unwanted, and they don't want his characteristics to be carried on in their eggs. They can simply decide not to use what he is giving them and hold out for a better drake and simply shut that valve off, essentially. Kind of interesting when you think about it. Just the way that chickens and turkeys and other birds can hold on to that sperm for up to 3 weeks and continue to have fertilized eggs, even if they only had contact with a rooster once. It's the same kind of thing. They can dispel one and go for the other one and have that same result with the fertile eggs. Now, if a duck, a drake, a male duck, finds himself in a situation where, let's say, he doesn't have enough duck hens at his disposal and he's only around chickens, the chances that he is going to try to do things to your chicken that you don't want him to do are kind of high. Now, the problem comes in is that chickens are not built for that. They're built for cloacal to cloacal contact. And so a duck can hurt or kill a chicken simply by showing it some affection in that sense. So when you're having a mixed flock, if you're going to do that, I do recommend that you start them out together young, that you make sure your numbers are appropriate. For example, if you've got, you know, too many drakes and no hens, that's not going to work out in your chicken's favor. You want to make sure that your drakes are gentle, will let you handle them. You watch them around the other birds. If you see a drake that is too aggressive in your flock, you cull him. He becomes dinner. The ones that are doing well and sweet and gentle and seem to only pay attention to the hens in that way, those are the ones that you want to keep. Ideally, I will get down to just having 1 or maybe 2 drakes in my flock. They're still young. They're not at their first breeding season yet, so I have a little time still. I will be keeping all of my duck hens, but I will be switching out and processing some of the young drakes. And I've got 2 that I've got my eye on right now of my boys that seem the most gentle and the best characteristics physically as far as size and demeanor that I want to keep. So the rest will probably get processed out and will go to feed the family. But you 100% can keep a mixed flock. In fact, I've done it for years with no issues. The only time I had an issue was with a young drake who was trying to establish his dominance over his dad and trying to establish dominance over the rest of the hens as a result. And he got cold real quick. So if you're keeping an eye on your flock, they can, yes, you can mix your species together, but you've got to pay attention. You've got to know who you're working with, and you've got to make sure you have enough duck hens to keep those boys occupied so that they don't start looking at your chickens in a different light. Moving this poultry netting is not that difficult. Being able to move your birds around to different areas of the pasture and still have their coop as home base is amazing, guys. I highly recommend it. If you have enough space that you're able to do that with your poultry, it's great. It will keep a section of your land cleared for you so that you're not having to do it in areas here like we are in Mississippi. We get a lot of rain, and that grass grows tall and fast, and it's a lot to maintain. So having these birds that can come in here and help keep it cleaned out, which is not only good for us, it's good for them and it's good for the ground. They are doing the good work out here, and they get to be birds. They get to go out and scratch the dirt and root around and do what they do. And that's priceless, guys. That makes for happy birds, that makes for good land, that makes for better meat, better eggs, all of the above. They're eating those rich, nutrient dense grasses and bugs. They're getting sunshine. They're getting all those good things that are going to translate to all the vitamins and minerals that you're then going to be able to get out of their meat and their eggs. And that, guys, is amazing. And it's going to help your land long term if you're able to do that. Now, I know not everybody has the space to be able to move their birds the way that we do, because not everybody has X amount of acreage that they can do that on. But even if you have a small area in your backyard, let's say you have a standard backyard and you've got maybe a few hens, you can do the same thing with them. You can strip graze them in little areas with a little bit of, you probably wouldn't even need electric fencing for that if they're just in your backyard, if it's, depending on your safeness level. I've seen people do it with little like garden fences that you'd put like in front of your flower garden or something. You'd be surprised what will keep them in when they're happy. A lot of people in those scenarios would also mix in a rabbit as well, because then you're getting that good fertilizer in your yard as well. And rabbits and chickens generally, they'll get along just fine. So it's really nice to have your own fresh eggs, of course, and they're just gonna be that much better for you if you're able to move them. And I know sometimes on larger scales, it's easier to do things like this, move them to larger areas and have them cleared out at a time. So this is great because I can rotate from that side of the coop to the front of the coop to the back of the coop to the side of the coop. And we can just keep rotating them around and letting that ground rest and recover as we move them around. And so we're getting all those benefits. They're getting the benefits, and it's good for everybody involved, And I'm such a big proponent of letting your poultry and your fowl graze if you can. Those vitamins and minerals, they're so deficient in a lot of the foods you buy at the store nowadays. If you're going to be doing stuff yourself, you might as well do it the best that you can and get the most out of it, and utilizing the bugs and the grass and the dirt, and really giving them the chance to, got bit by another ant, really giving them the chance to get in there and do that. It's just only going to benefit you in the long run, and the things that you're then going to be able to feed your family and yourself with. Let's get out of the ants. They're eating me up. They like me because I didn't put my Crocs in sport mode. But guys, you've seen how it's not that hard with this fencing to be able to move where their pasture is and have them have access to everything. You can do it on a smaller scale if you want your animals to be protected and you only have a few birds and maybe not as large of space. You can build a chicken tractor like the one behind me, and you can use that to move them every, so often, depending on the number of birds and the size of space that you have, to give them that rotation, to give the ground that rotation. I know there's a lot of people that dream of farming or homesteading to various degrees. And let me tell you, it's 100% worth it. And one of the things to look at when you're considering making some of those changes and implementing them in your life and with your animals is look at what's around you. Look at the situation you're in, look at your environment, and try to utilize your space and what you have available to you for them as best you can. There's so many things that I've learned over the years, little tips and tricks that really help keep everybody happy and healthy and cohesive together. And I hope I shared some of that with you today, guys. Don't be afraid to step out and to give it a whirl. birds, while they can be very delicate, while they can be a little bit challenging sometimes to raise, they're relatively easy. And once you kind of get the hang of it, uh, you really find yourself just enjoying them and all the things that they have to offer, their company, their bug eating ability, their meat, their eggs, and their companionship. They really are. I mean, they're a lot of fun, and I highly recommend birds to somebody who wants to start some animals on their homestead, because it's really a good way to kind of dip your toe in. Homesteading, everybody, it's a big thing right now. Everybody wants to homestead. Everybody wants to farm. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of time, but it is 100% worth it. And if it's something that you're considering, I would definitely look into starting with birds, starting smaller, figuring out, what your size of your area is that you have to work with for the animals that you do want to do, and figure out what things you like. Maybe find a local farm that has some Muscovy ducks and try some of the meat, because maybe you'll love it or maybe you won't. Store-bought chicken tastes differently than homegrown chicken. It just does. It's better. I haven't had anybody tell me that they don't prefer it to homegrown chicken, that they just think it's so much better, and it's so much healthier for you guys. Pasturing them, I 100% believe, is key to that when we're talking about this kind of poultry and fowl. Your chickens, your meat chickens, your ducks, all of that is so important. If you're doing quail, that's a much different scenario. We've done videos on that before, on how to raise them and different tips and tricks for doing quail, but it's a much faster turnover, where these guys take a lot longer to reach maturity. So there's different aspects of different animals that you definitely want to consider when you're thinking about getting into this whole farming situation. But I tell you what, either way, you're gonna love it. Well, there you have it, guys. All those reasons are why you should be having your birds outside, digging in the earth and help clearing up your land. Sometimes they are even better than goats or sheep at some of that stuff, depending on what fowl you have and what kind of mixed flock you might have on your property. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We appreciate you. And as always, stay blessed and safety's off.